West African again. I think he was from Ghana, Ghana or Sierra Leone, one of the two. They're next door countries. His name was Kwabena, and he was one of those people who again just absorbed the gospel from the beginning. He loved hearing it. The challenges we faced with teaching him weren't challenges of getting him to feel the Spirit and to recognize it. There were other challenges in place. His father was a Jehovah's Witness, and was not a huge fan of him meeting with the missionaries and joining the LDS Church. His conversion process was one that probably taught me more than it taught him, and I feel like that's often the case as a missionary. You learn so much more than you could ever hope to teach. It was a really interesting dynamic. I was in a singles ward. He was a young single adult. He was found by some other missionaries who passed him off to us, and then one of them became my next companion. So he and I were teaching him, and we were having some trouble getting in touch with him because of schedules and because he was West African, and then also his father's opposition. There was some struggles with working with him there. And I remember one night, my companion and I were switching back from an exchange. We got back together, but the snow just was coming down super hard, and we weren't going to make it back to our apartment that night. So we let our mission president know, and so we stayed the night at these other elders' apartment, just crashed on their couch, and the next morning when the roads were plowed, we were headed home. But that night, we're sitting there talking with these missionaries, and my companion, who's just a wise soul, suggested, "Hey, why don't we all just split up in our companionships and have a comp inventory? Like, snow's coming down. We've planned for tomorrow." It felt like a good thing to do for him, and so we did. And as he and I were talking, we were kind of evaluating how we were doing as a companionship, and we were talking about obedience and what more can we do to be more obedient missionaries. We pulled out our missionary handbooks and we were flipping through, and we were doing a really good job with obedience. We didn't have any big red flags. That we felt like we were doing really well. And then again, he asked a question that just kind of changed everything. He said, "Well, maybe we need to stop asking what more we can do. We need to ask what more we can give. What can we sacrifice? Because sacrifice brings forth a ton of blessings. It brings out, it makes us rely on and recognize more the sacrifice that Christ made, and it's huge." And so we set some goals as a companionship, and we gave up some things that weren't bad, but just that we were still holding back from the Lord. And the next day was a trial. It was a real test to see if we were going to stick to that, and we did. And the next day, Kwabena gave us a call and said, "I'm ready to be baptized." Just God's work. He had just been at home, decided to pick up the Book of Mormon, and felt that it was true, and decided that it was what he was going to do. And his teaching went really smoothly from there out. My experience with Kwabena, like I said, we could only teach him so much. His experience of conversion came on his own as he picked up and read the Book of Mormon. But what it taught me was the importance of obedience and of sacrifice and of really giving everything that you have to the Lord. Elder Maxwell said once in a talk that everything that we have in our life was given to us by God. It's not really ours to begin with. But when we give God our will, that's when we're really giving something to Him, because that's the only thing we have that's uniquely ours. And as we prayerfully decided on those things that we were going to give to Him, He pointed out some things to us that were going to be hard. But by recognizing that His will is more important than ours. We saw so many blessings, and Kwabina's experience with the Book of Mormon was just the first of many. It was an incredible time in my mission where we really just let the Lord guide. I think every one of us as missionaries has our individual areas of struggle. What it comes down to, the simplest way to put it, is really pride. President Benson defined pride as when we put our will above God's, and all that consecration is putting His above ours. Some missionaries struggle with obedience. Kind of the same way I mentioned I had, was where I didn't see the point. I was never blatantly disobedient as a missionary, but there were times where I wondered, why am I doing this? And so I think part of that is kind of just this idea of well, I don't understand that rule. Isn't my way better? I'm not sure why that's there. Isn't this the way to go? I think part of it too, I mentioned earlier, that struggle between being the perfect name tag and being you as a missionary. And I saw a lot of that too. Missionaries who were holding something back from God, thinking this is who I am, and not realizing that that's not who they are. Like I said, there's that balance between you and the robot missionary. You want to be a better you, but you want to still be you. And sometimes people go too far; they become the robot. And sometimes they go too far the other way, and that's when they're holding on to a quirk of theirs, or something that, while not intrinsically bad, is something that they could be better without. And I think really it just comes down to recognizing that God knows who you are. And He's not going to let you give you up. When you give your will to Him, when you really consecrate yourself, He's going to give you right back. He's going to take those impurities out. He's going to give you right back. And I think a lot of it's fear. For me, I was afraid of losing me. I like me, I hope that doesn't come as prideful or arrogant, but I enjoy the person that I became because of my parents and my youth leaders growing up, and realizing that there's still more work to do, still a lot of things I need to get better at is a humbling process, and there's these parts of me where it's a scary thing, committing yourself to God entirely. There's stories in the scriptures of people who wanted to give more but just couldn't quite commit entirely. It's a terrifying thing, because it takes a lot of humility, recognizing that you're not in charge. It takes a lot of faith, believing that God's gonna take care of you. And I think there's just these little things that we all hold back because we're afraid to lose us. And you just got to trust that God knows you, and He's gonna protect. He's gonna protect you. He's gonna take care of you, and you just have to trust that as much as He knows you, He also knows there's a better you. And so just don't be afraid. I know that's super easy to say, but just trust Him. It's easier said than done, but trust Him with little things, and He'll show you that He deserves that trust, and you can trust Him with more and more. And there's no greater blessing in life than from knowing that you're acting in accordance with His will. That's when you're really an instrument in His hand. He can do anything with you if you're ready, if you're listening, and if you trust Him.